Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and happy Monday to all of you and to those of you catching this on the replay. My name is Janae of JanaeM.com, and it's officially June, which means that it's National Home Ownership Month. So for the entire month, this month, I'll be sharing tips and strategies to help you if you're a first-time homeowner. And say hello and who you are and where you're joining from as you come in so I can greet you, to share tips and strategies this month to help you if you are a first-time homeowner, if you want to become a homeowner and purchase a home in the near future, tips and strategies to help you position yourself. Hey, Kevin. And so that way you can be in a good place when you go to purchase your home. So we'll be diving into our theme for this week, which is what can you afford? And so today we're starting with what can you afford to pay each month for your new home. Now, in case you're new to me, again, my name is Janae of JanaeM.com. I go by the Millennial Money Minister. My official title is Financial Consultant, and I have a heart for teaching first-generation grads like me how to manage their money so they can save more and build wealth. So you can find out more about me on my website. Again, that's JENEEM.com. So I've shared my journey before. And I'll share it again, and I'll just give you the condensed version. So I'm originally from New York City. I now live in Richmond, Virginia, and in 2006, my family was basically uprooted from New York, and we moved here to Virginia. Now, why that happened is my dad, he just decided to stop paying the mortgage and the taxes on our home, and so we were forced to sell our home. Otherwise, it was going to go into foreclosure. Now, that happened after a series of bad decisions that he had made with his business, which impacted him personally and us as a family. So it wasn't more so that he didn't have the means to pay the mortgage. He wasn't responsible with the money that he had. So, yeah, I know you know. He wasn't responsible with the money that he did have. And so as a result, after 12 years of being in the home that I grew up in, we had to get rid of it. So we ended up moving to Virginia. And after that whole ordeal, I was like, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to put myself in that situation. So I made a series of decisions to help support me in doing the opposite of what my dad did, and it did land me in becoming a homeowner at the age of 25. It'll be 4 years next month that I will have been a homeowner, and so not only do I share from my experience and my personal journey, I'm also a licensed financial provider, and so I share a lot of industry best practices to help you with your home ownership journey, and I made sure that all of my content actually aligns with HUD, the Housing of Urban Development's content for their pre-home ownership education. So I'm providing all the steps that I went through myself, as well as industry best practices, so that way you are positioned exactly the way you need to be, so that way when you go to actually buy your home, you're familiar with the entire process, and you will have, put the time in and put the work in to get your finances in order. So when you go through it, it's a breeze. When I bought my home, I literally made an offer, and it was received within a week, and I closed and moved in within 2 months, which is not the norm for a lot of people. I know my cousin, he experienced a lot of back and forth, and so that delayed him from moving into his home right away. But I was able to kind of get in and get out with my process. And I think that's also attributed to the fact that because I had good credit and, the down payment was not an issue, I was able to get a private loan versus a government loan, so I didn't have to deal with all the paperwork that was, needed for that. So and we'll get more into, types of loans in the coming weeks. But we're going to start with the basics today. And I shared a bit about this in a previous live that I did, but I wanted to come back and just kind of break things down lesson by lesson, so that way, you don't get overwhelmed with information. So all of this information that I'll be sharing this month, today, and even my journey is documented in an online course that I created called The Blueprint. And if you want to learn more about that, I did include a link in this video. So today we're talking about what can you afford each month. And also, if you are tuning in now or catching this on the replay, I would greatly appreciate it if you shared this, especially if you know someone who wants to become a homeowner. You can also tag them in the comments below, so that way they get access to this information. Now, I know that I said that I'll be deleting the lives that I do on my personal page, but what I did not keep in mind was the algorithms with Facebook, which can be a little strange. So I'm actually going to keep these up, but I will be, because I am streaming live on YouTube as well, the YouTube replay will be available on my Facebook business page. So let's dive right in. So we're talking about how to determine how much you can afford to pay for a home each month. And I have my notes in front of me, so if I'm looking down, that's what's going on. And if you have questions, you can pop them into the comments. I will answer them as I'm here. And if you're catching this on the replay and you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer as well. So if you're a first-time home buyer, the last thing that you want to do is be blindsided by a bunch of expenses. Another thing too is I know when I did the beta testing for my online course, one of the items of feedback that I got was, what are the costs associated with home ownership? How do I even begin to plan for that? And so that's something that I talk about in my course. But today, once I help you with figuring out how much you can afford each month, that gives you a hard number of what to stay under. So when it comes to all those additional costs, your goal is to make sure that when you go to get pricing and estimates for these other costs, that they would not cause you to go over what this number is going to be. Why? Because the number that we'll be talking about today, well, I'll share that later. But even if you already own a home, because I know that, there are people who are in homes now. Obviously, I'm a homeowner. And you may have realized that you didn't go about things the right way. If you are significantly over this amount, then you may want to think about downsizing. So if you're a first-time homeowner, or you will be a first-time homeowner because this will be your first home, or if you're a current homeowner and you're concerned that you're paying too much based on the amount of income that you make and you're deciding whether or not that you should downsize, this will help you determine whether you should even explore that option or not. So I know that housing prices are going up. I know rents are going up. And so you don't want to buy too soon or wait too late. So this info also is going to help you decide, whether the timing is right based on the money that you're bringing in right now. And that's another thing too, like you want to base your decisions off of the money that you're actually making. Because even I did it myself. I once I made the position or transition to going into financial services, I kind of overestimated my salary at the time because I was working full time, and then, I had just got my license. And so I was forecasting what my income was going to be. I had already bought my home at that time, but this was when I bought my vacation home. I had overestimated what my income was and made a decision based on money that I didn't already have yet. And so that messed me up, because with the timing of actually, starting that part of my business, the timing was off. And so I want you to base your decision of whether or not buying a home is the right decision for you now, or downsizing is the right decision. I want you to base it on what you actually make, like what actually hits your bank account, not what you think you can make, not what you feel you can make, not what you see other people making based on the industry that you're in. If you're a business owner, I want you to base your decision off of your actual receipts. Okay. So I just wanted to put that out there, because that's important, because you have people making decisions based on money that they don't currently have. And while it's great to have income goals and revenue goals, if you're a business owner, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're spending money before you even receive it, because that's a whole another issue. So I'll put that out there. And so what happens is, when you take the time to, calculate what, this number is in terms of what's affordable for you on a monthly basis. Number one, it gives you peace of mind, because you're not spending too much money. It also helps you to prepare for the unexpected. Why? Because it frees up money for you to be able to save. And then lastly, it helps you from being in the dark about things that you didn't know about before. So a lot of people, when they go into buying a home, they base it off of how much they want to pay for their mortgage, but they don't think about the additional fees that can get added onto that. And so I'll mention what those additional fees can be, so that way you're not blindsided by that. So let's get into it. So I do have kind of 3 tips for today in terms of determining how much you can afford each month and what you can afford each month for your new home. And the first one is to do some simple math. So whatever your gross income is, if you're a business owner, whatever your salary is that you pay yourself, you want to take 30% of that. So you want to take 30% of that, whatever that number is. And so you're doing it based on your gross income, gross monthly income. So not your annual gross income, but your monthly gross income. So if you make, let's do something easy. So if you make $60,000 a year divided by 12, that is that 5? Yes. That's $5,000 a month. And so if you take 30% of that, that's $1,500. So do some easy math and figure out what that calculation is. Now that is how much you don't want to go over each month when it comes to all of your expenses, and not just your mortgage. So moving on to tip number 2, this lets you know what you can afford comfortably. So again, you don't want to go over this amount, and that's with all of your fees. So with this number in mind, what this means is that it gives you enough money left over in your check for you to be able to pay, expenses like utilities and whatever other expenses that you have, personal expenses that you have to pay out. But the idea is that when you stay within that 30% range, basically it doesn't cause you to overspend for housing like some people are, because housing is one of the largest expenses that you can pay for. And so if you stay within this range, you won't notice, a situation where your money, most of your money is going into your rent or your mortgage. Now, if you are currently renting, your rent should not be more than 30% of your gross income as well. So if you like, lavish luxury apartment communities, like, I get it, I love them, but your income should fall in line with whatever you're paying in your rent. So make sure you do that. Because if you are over that 30% mark and you want to buy a home, then what that's going to mean is that that's less money that you'll have available to save towards purchasing your home. So you want to keep that 30% threshold in mind, not for just wanting to buy a home and how much you should be paying for your home, but how much you should not go over in terms of renting. If you are over that, then that means that, if your income is not going to increase, in the next 6 months or so, then you need to be looking for something that's a little more affordable, because it's going to tie up a lot of your money. Even though you're only paying one bill, if you have, debt that you need to pay off, that's less money that you can use to pay off that debt. If you have plans to save or invest aggressively, that takes away money from that. So it's something to keep in mind. You don't want to just think about the fact that, yes, you can pay, whatever it is you're paying for rent on a short-term basis, but you want to look at the long-term cost that you're missing out on as a result of your money going towards housing and not towards some of the longer-term things that you want to accomplish. So that's important. And then, so that was number 2. This number lets you know what you can afford comfortably. And lastly, it gives you a hard number of what not to go over in terms of fees. So not just principal, interest, and taxes, which is included in your mortgage, but also fees such as insurance. So this is homeowners insurance. And you can pay that on a 6-month basis, kind of like your car insurance. And then there is mortgage insurance, which you would most likely pay monthly, but you can pay quarterly or annually for that as well. Association fees. So this should be included in that budget. And then repair and maintenance fees. So I'll say that again. So usually your mortgage just includes principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So PITI is one of the acronyms that's used in the mortgage world. So principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and that insurance is the homeowner's insurance. So usually your mortgage includes just that. So that's what goes to the bank. Sometimes those additional expenses that is paid by escrow, which is an account that is opened by the bank. Sometimes you pay the homeowner's insurance on your own. Sometimes you pay the taxes on your own if it's not rolled into escrow. It just depends on your current setup. But outside of that, what's not included is your association fees. So you want to prepare for that, and your repair and maintenance fees. And so those are the 2 expenses that you want to be mindful of, because whatever that 30% number is, you want to make sure however much you should be budgeting for your association fees each month and your repair and maintenance fees each month, you want to make sure that it fits into that 30% number. Because if it doesn't fit, that means that that home long term is not an affordable expense for what you're making right now, which is okay. Maybe you might just delay buying a home until you can get your income to a certain level where you can afford to live in the type of house that you want, the type of neighborhood that you want. It just means that you have to make some adjustments. But what you don't want to do is put yourself in a situation where, you have this number in mind and then that only covers, what you're paying the bank, and then the repairs and maintenance fees and association fees and all the other fees get tacked onto it. And now that's sucking up 50% of your check because of the fact that you didn't start with this budget in mind. So 30% of your gross income, or for business owners, whatever you're paying yourself, because you don't want to base it off of your gross receipts, because that could be a pretty significant number. So 30% of whatever you're making, and so that's your benchmark with all of your fees for housing outside of utilities and all that stuff. You don't want to pay more than 30%. So every fee associated with your home, you don't want to go above 30%, because otherwise you'll be pouring most of your money into it. And I mean, 50% of your income going towards housing is pretty significant. So 30% for everything, all of your mortgage and all of your fees, and whatever services that you're having done to your home, you want to make sure all of that is lumped into this one number. So that way, basically, you can free up enough money, that other 70%, to be able to do the things that you want to do. So that way you can enjoy life and not have to be in a situation where you're bogged down by paying bills for your house, because that can cause you to resent being a homeowner. And so it's better to take the steps earlier versus later, so that way you can make a wiser decision versus having to go through all these steps to make adjustments to afford the lifestyle you created for yourself. So I hope this was helpful. Again, if you are catching this on the replay, or if you're just tuning in, if you have questions, you can pop them down below, and I'd be happy to answer them. I'm also streaming live to YouTube, so the replay will be available. And if you want to learn more about the online course where I feature information such as these tips and more, you can visit the link in the video, bit.ly/the blueprint to home buying. So take care, everyone, and I look forward to talking with you next time. Bye-bye.